Uh, Rhea, shall we get started?
Yes. Okay. Greetings, everyone. I'm Rhea. I am a junior at Westboro High School. On behalf of the Wholistic Health Alliance Youth Brigade's Teen Mental Health Initiative project, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to everyone. To begin with, I am going to invite the founder and president of Wholistic Health Alliance, Dr. Pratibha Shah, to say a few words.
I also echo the sentiments, extending a very warm welcome to everybody and for taking out time on a weekday evening. It's not easy, but this is an important conversation. So thank you so much for making the time. I'm going to just briefly introduce the organization. And then our youth leaders are going to talk about briefly about the initiatives. Give me a second. I've got it's Amo, can you keep an eye on admitting people, please? You're a co-host.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. All right. So Holistic Health Alliance is the parent organization. It is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, and the aim was to create a unified platform on a national level to bring holistic practitioners together. Sorry, it's taking time to load. With a vision of building healthy communities as well as providing a platform for holistic health practitioners to come together under one umbrella, fostering collaborations, building stronger networks, and enabling greater synergy within the community. The mission of Holistic Health Alliance is to create a strong network of holistic health practitioners, which is intimately connected with the community, and to build bridges with the mainstream healthcare, with the consumer at the center of it all. In, I believe, 2017, I had this passion of working with the youth or getting them involved in conversations around health. So we started the Youth Brigade for teens in the age group of 13 to 19, with a goal to initiate and engage conversations around health with the belief that healthy habits should be inculcated young. So this platform of Youth Brigade aims at providing an opportunity for our youth to connect with their peers around the topics of health and well-being, hopefully entrenching them soundly onto a healthier life through education, interaction, and role modeling. The two projects that are current and active right now are Teen Mental Health Initiative, the project that is focused on raising awareness on the subject of teen mental health issues. And the second one is called Fooditude. You can see it's a funky name and a funky logo. This is about uh, changing attitudes towards food. So again, towards, through education, awareness, etc. Currently, we have Rhea Mohan as the TMHI president. She's a rising senior, class of 2027, Westboro High School. And Mishka Bhatti, she's dropping in and out because she's in the school right now. She's just got a job there. So she should be here. And then the Fooditude project is ably led by Amok Prakash right now. He's the president and co-founder of Fooditude. He's a rising senior, class of 2027, Westboro High School. And Rohan Buddhadev is the vice president. He's in Chicago. He has not been able to join because he had to travel suddenly. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Rhea to talk a little bit about Teen Mental Health Initiative. Amok, I can continue to share, so don't worry. Okay, Rhea, go ahead.
Okay, so Teen Mental Health Initiative is for teens by teens. It is a Holistic Health Alliance Youth Brigade project, and you can follow us on Instagram at Teen Mental Health Initiative. So our mission, the Teen Mental Health Initiative, TMHI, is a WHA Youth Brigade project that is dedicated to raising awareness about teen mental health and taking real action to reduce those issues. It is a world where mental health is valued and treated with the same importance as physical health.
Are you good?
starting in our schools and communities. So gaps and why TMHI is needed. 1 in 5 teens experience a mental health condition each year. 50% of a lifetime mental illness begins by the age 14. And 80% of youth with mental health needs receive no treatment. TMHI fills the following gaps. It creates safe spaces for teens to talk about how they're feeling without being judged. It connects students with mental health professionals and peer advocates. It promotes prevention, resilience, and coping skills and healthy communication. It reaches teens through peer-led events, workshops, and youth outreach, and it brings schools, families, and communities all together. Our past events and milestones. In the past, we had a Recognize, Respond, Resolve mental health panel at Westboro High School. We had a Mind Matters panel last year, featured experts like Dr. ROHIT Chandra and Dr. Machari Keshavan discussing myths and stigma strategies. We had a Walk for Wellness walkathon held at Chauncey Lake in collaboration with Westboro Connects. We had a Fall for Wellness community-wide mental health awareness drive encouraging participation. We had fundraisers at Chacha and Beans, Chipotle, and more, raising funds and spreading our mission. And we had a Burlington Health Fair tabled at the fair to promote TMHI and recruit new members. Our ongoing activities. We have weekly meetings to plan, learn, and coordinate activities. We create educational social media content to spread awareness. We participate in events and collaborate with aligned organizations. We produce monthly mental health blogs and discussions to engage the community. Looking ahead of our future plans, we plan to upload informational teen mental health talks on our YouTube channel, host fundraisers to spread mental health awareness in our community, grow our reach on social media platforms on Instagram and TikTok, and boost mental health blog readership, visibility, and impact. And join the club. Join WHA Youth Brigade.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mo Prakash, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit more about Fooditude. We started this project with the goal of changing your attitude towards food, and we'll get into some of the main drivers in a little bit. So, what we do is we mainly highlight the negative effects of unhealthy eating habits. We provide information through our social media platforms to help the youth make more informed choices because we really want people to be educated. And our goal is to empower and encourage youth to understand the significant impact of their diet to their overall well-being. Now, why we need Fooditude is because 1 in 5 teens and adolescents aged 2 to 19 are obese in the US, and many more are severely overweight. In the same study, it was found that 40% of adults are obese or overweight in the US. Next, teens who are obese are 18 times more likely to continue to struggle with obesity into adulthood, meaning these habits are built when you're young and are you need to break them when you're young as well. Finally, over 2/3 of American teenagers get their daily food energy from ultra-processed food, which are very low in nearly all necessary nutrients and stripped of many of the needs of teens throughout the day for food. In the past, we have done promotional tables at many events such as a Turkey Trot, the ISW and IYG events, and many more. We host an annual Jeopardy. Be on the lookout for our date being posted very soon for our next Jeopardy happening this summer. We host a Fooditude picnic where we spend a day outside and eat good, healthy food. We host a Walk for Wellness, walkathon just alongside Fooditude, or alongside TMHI and Westboro Connects. And at the end of the year, we have a volunteer appreciation and ice cream social because it's important to understand that we don't always need to be eating these healthy things, and sometimes having ice cream is okay and a fun activity. Now, our ongoing activities, we continue to have weekly meetings where we check in and we create these educational social media posts. We participate in awareness events, raising awareness on food and teens' diets. We outreach and collaborate with like-minded organizations online and in person if we can. And we have monthly food blogs and monthly food talks that we post on our YouTube and website. In the future, we plan to continue uploading these food talks to our YouTube channel, which you can see on screen right here. We want to organize fundraisers to enhance access to healthy food options. We want to share valuable information on social media. You can see our Instagram at WHA Fooditude. We want to maintain a steady publication of blogs on our websites, and we want to organize fun activities like Jeopardies and walks. Now, why should you join Fooditude? Well, you can discover ways to improve your overall well-being, create a positive impact within your community. It's a great way to earn volunteer hours and qualify for various awards. And you gain valuable skills that benefit all aspects of your life beyond learning how to eat properly, such as public speaking, leadership, and working within a team. There are also so many more reasons I could go on to talk about why you should join Fooditude, but that's not why we're here today. If you are interested in joining Fooditude, please scan this QR code. It is completely free. Thank you.
QR code one more time.
Okay. Thank you once again. I once again welcome you all to our Unpacking Isolation virtual mental health panel hosted by the WHA Teen Mental Health Initiative. We're so grateful to have you join us today as we raise awareness about teen loneliness and work to make them feel more connected in their communities. This event takes place during Mental Health Awareness Month, a time dedicated to recognizing the importance of emotional well-being and advocating for accessible support. At Teen Mental Health Initiative, we believe that teen mental health deserves to be prioritized, discussed openly, and supported with care and compassion. Today's panel is for anyone who wants to learn more, gain valuable resources, and become part of a movement that values vulnerability and strength in equal measure. We are honored to welcome our guest speakers, Dr. Chandra from Harvard Medical School, Ms. Goyette from Department of Mental Health, Dr. Bari from the Boston Psychiatry Center and McLean Hospital, and Ms. Palmer, a leadership advisor and certified functional health practitioner. Each of them brings a wealth of experience and insight to this important conversation, and we're excited to learn from them and grow together as a community.
I want to take a moment to introduce each speaker a little bit more in depth. First, we have Dr. Chandra. Dr. Chandra is a child and adolescent psychiatrist at MGH Chelsea, where he works closely with immigrant populations and co-chairs the MGH Chelsea Community Research Program. He is also an instructor in psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, where he teaches second-year medical students.
Now I'm going to take the moment to introduce Dr. Bari. Dr. Bari is the co-founder of Boston Psychiatry Center, an insurance-based outpatient mental health clinic offering psychiatry and therapy services. He is also a staff psychiatrist at McLean Hospital.
Next, I'm going to introduce Ms. Sharon Goyette, who is an educational leader specializing in trauma-informed um, pedagogy, currently serving as an instructional coach for special education in institutional settings with the Collaborative for Educational Services. And finally, we have Miss Ellen Palmer. Ellen is a leadership advisor, certified functional health practitioner, and speaker with more than 18 years of experience working at the intersection of mental wellness, health, and human development.
Let's get into the questions, and please make sure your answers are 2 to 3 minutes as we want to get all the questions today.
3 to 4 minutes, Rhea. 3 to 4 minutes.
Oh, sorry, 3 to 4 minutes. Sorry. And we have Pratibhanti here to keep track of time. And a housekeeping reminder to please keep your mutes muted.
Really quickly before we get into the questions, I want to thank everyone in the audience for coming and joining us today. And I would like to encourage you all to ask any questions you have in the chat. You can chat them to me directly, Pratibhanti, or and let us know if you have a specific question for a specific speaker. After we ask each speaker a few questions, we will move on to the Q&As that we gathered from the audience. So please feel free to ask. Our first question is for Dr. Chandra. Now, we have one specific question for each panelist based on their professional backgrounds. So, Dr. Chandra, as per your experience with children's psychiatry, what are some ways parents can identify that their teen is struggling with loneliness and mental health?
Great question, Emma, and thanks so much for having me. As mentioned, I work with kind of the poor population. So the population I work with when I evaluate children, teens, uh, this is a heavily Latino population, and they actually have strong families, pretty strong communities. Um, I have not found too much loneliness among them, probably because the families and communities are strong and they seem pretty interconnected. But the sorts of signs that one would look for, in general, and sometimes teens will tell you, like, I just don't, I don't feel like I have enough people in my life, or I just don't feel like I have enough friends. Um, so there's said to be two types of loneliness. There's emotional and there's social. And emotional loneliness is akin to kind of being on a boat in the middle of the sea. It's sort of water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. Like you can't slake your thirst, even though you're thirsty. So you may have emotional loneliness as having people around you, but not feeling perhaps that you can connect to them or they understand you, you don't feel validated. So, in the midst of having enough connections, you just don't really feel socially connected. And social loneliness is more like being trapped on a desert island where you just don't have people around you and you are missing human company. So those are two types of loneliness. And I would say that in terms of the emotional, it's very subjective. And so it's a little tough, but essentially if your child is kind of pulling away from you, is just kind of in their room a lot, is seemingly irritable, these are some ways to tell. Generally, in terms of depression, anxiety, and loneliness, getting feedback from parents of your child's friends is often helpful. So, the child's friends' parents, teachers, others who've known your teen may let you know that something is off, that the person does not seem like themselves. But often they will also, your child may also share. So those are a few ways. But in terms of the social loneliness piece, they will often say, I just don't feel like I have enough people, I don't have enough friends, people don't like me or something. They may share that they're kind of hungry for social connection. The emotional loneliness piece is a little bit harder to suss out sometimes. And but I would say for parents, the best thing is really just to make sure that you're trying to connect to your teen, even if your teen is kind of withdrawing into phones or their room, trying to make sure that at the end of the day, you're asking, how he, she, they are doing, and getting a sense of their day is just helpful. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think your point about how when you start to notice your child pulling away or seeming irritable, it's very important to get feedback from others. I think that's a great point that I haven't heard very often that could definitely help, um, you know, bridge the gap that between you and your child. Our next question is for Ms. Palmer. So, Ms. Palmer, as a leadership advisor and health practitioner, what impact do you think recent global events like the pandemic, political climate, academic pressure, and many others have on teen well-being? You're muted.
Thank you for the reminder. I think it's been an incredible disruptor to our young people, especially in their bodies. We tend to think of loneliness as an emotional state, but really what happens when we are isolated or we are lonely, our body is in a constant state of nervous system reactivity. And what that impacts is our ability to sleep, to eat well, to connect. It's almost impossible to connect when our nervous system is highly activated all the time. And if we go back to the pandemic, everything changed, especially the adolescent years, the teen years. We are really, really driven by a sense of belonging. And all of a sudden that changed. All of our communities changed. How we were interacting with one another changed. We looked to our big people, the adults in the room, and they were acting different. And we didn't necessarily feel like we were connecting with them as young adults, or you all were feeling that way. and it's no one's fault. This is the world that we're living in, but it can be so very important that we really pay attention to what is happening in our bodies when we feel a sense of loneliness. So I just want to drive that point. It's not just psychological and emotional, it is very much physical. So when the pandemic hit and we went inward and we stopped socializing the way that we did, and then we lost the skill. So the developmental stage that teens are in is very much, as mentioned, about interacting face to face, reading facial cues, reading social cues. Sometimes, we touch a friend, or that proximity to one another is a really important part of how our brain develops and how our nervous system calms down. So without that, we lost some of our social connection skills. And then when the pandemic was over, it was like life was back to normal. But what happened was we left everyone behind, and we never caught young adults up in terms of how to build the skill of connection again, because it had changed so dramatically. And so everyone was doing the best they could. The world was weird, and we had to do what we had to do. But then we lost something when we went back to normal. I think the political climate is particularly interesting for our young people. It adds a whole different layer. Teens are paying attention to everything that's happening and how they see adults reacting to things, and that can feel like a lot of anxiety. I think the academic pressure sits on top of all of that. When a young person is already feeling a chronic state of stress, their capacity for connection goes down. So it's not that anyone is broken. There's nothing to fix. I just think we have an opportunity right now to look at this generation and scoop them up and love them well and find different and meaningful ways to connect. I love what was said initially about even if you feel your teenager or adolescent withdrawing, or maybe it appears that they're not paying attention, don't give up. That connection matters so, so, so much. And so just stay present. And as adults, do our very best to regulate our nervous systems, do what we can to pause before we react, and just find our way to reconnecting so that our teens can learn the very important skill. We think it's character development. We think it is psychology or how our brain works. It is a skill. So I just offer that we all have an opportunity to connect in a different way to support everybody, including and especially our teens.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's very powerful. I think a lot of our research at TMHI, we see that the developmental piece was lost, and a lot of those connections aren't there anymore.
Yeah, and the good news is it's just simple daily habit of connecting. We get good at what we practice. So if we just practice connecting in the tiniest ways, we get better and better and better at it. So it doesn't have to be this huge thing. It could just be these tiny little bits every day.
Amok,
Thank
pardon me, everybody. I just have a quick announcement to make. Our Teen Mental Health Initiative president will need to leave shortly because she's getting an award at the school, and we were informed just yesterday, I think. So if you see her drop out, it's because of this. Otherwise, she would have been there the whole time. So, okay, go ahead, Amok. Go ahead.
Our next question is for Dr. Bilal. So, Dr. Bilal, as you have extensive experience in psychiatry, what early warning signs of anxiety, depression, or chronic loneliness should families watch for?
First of all, I appreciate you all having me, Amog, Rhea, Dr. Shah. And it's an important question because one of the things I want to emphasize, and one of the things I share with my patients is the things that I tend to worry about is when these things become a problem. And I think one thing that can get lost in a conversation is it's good to feel certain emotions. Like you want to be able to feel anxiety. Anxiety is actually a driver, a call to action. And in fact, if you never felt anxiety, that'd be its own problem. So that's one of the first things I try to emphasize to people, that it's perfectly normal to have that sort of pit in your stomach at times, to have mood changes. but it's really a question of, okay, at what point is it really starting to affect your life? And beyond the obvious, I think I'll touch on a few high level things that are I see pretty frequently, and I think patients and families may not pick up on. For example, a common way that depression, anxiety can manifest is not in the obvious way, which you would think, which is sadness or feeling really anxious all the time, but oftentimes with problems with concentrating. So somebody that's concentrated really well for years and years suddenly is finding that they have problems, and oftentimes they'll come to our clinic to see if they have ADHD. And I educate people that your brain's ability to concentrate is a bit of it's a vital function of what our brains do. And so there's many things that can impinge on that and cause problems with concentration. And so that's one of the ways that these things can manifest. Something that's a bit more specific to anxiety would be the ways that it manifests in our bodies. Typically, muscle tension is a common way that it shows up. People that start to get headaches out of nowhere, a lot of back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, that can be a sign of anxiety. And then with depression, again, I mentioned earlier, it's not. A lot of people think of depression and sadness as synonyms, but many people with depression wouldn't say they feel sad. Oftentimes they say, I just don't feel anything. And so what we look for is just like, how are they doing? Are they engaging in the things that used to bring them joy? Are they waking up and sort of motivated to get on with things? Are they eating the way that they used to? Are they taking care of themselves and healthy habits? And so it's sort of those things that I look out for that are maybe outside of the norm in terms of what we think about with kind of our day-to-day understanding of what these conditions are. But ultimately, it gets down to people just not doing as well as they used to be doing and not doing as well as they could be doing. So that's sort of my high level approach to thinking about this.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really liked your first point that feeling anxiety is normal and something that you shouldn't be scared of unless it starts to affect you. I think that's really powerful. Thank you so much. Our next question is going to be for Sharon. So, Miss Sharon, as a coach for DMH teachers, how can educators support students who feel socially isolated without making them feel singled out?
All right, well, thank you all for having me. And it's an interesting panel to be on because usually I'm on panels with educators. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. But I think, so my work is I work in schools and primarily in DMH schools, so Department of Mental Health schools, but I also work in Department of Youth Service schools, where actually you see very similar mental health problems. And so I think what we want to think about is while I'm in schools where students are in crisis or recovery, these are students that were once in a normal school, right? So, these feelings of loneliness or isolation or depression emerged prior to where they are now, right? And teachers are in a really unique position because, a teacher is not your friend, it's not your parent, they're not your clinician, right? They should be this neutral person who provides a really stable environment where you spend the majority of your time as a teenager is school, right? So it's really important for teachers to be able to recognize signs in students and to draw them into the classroom in a way that is welcoming, right? But also very respectful of the fact that teenagers like privacy and they like to separate from adults, right? That's like a normal process for teenagers. So when I'm working with teachers, we focus a lot on strategies that will draw the student into class. And it can really range like the impact on a student, anything from nonverbal communication with a student, right? If you have a very withdrawn student and you guys are in high school, there's lots of reasons that you might see a student with their head down, right? But sometimes they're tired, you're just up really late doing homework. But other times it's a sign that something more is going on, right? So when teachers can do even just small barometers with students of like making eye contact, thumbs up, thumbs down, are you with me? Is this making sense to you? That those little bits of connection actually go a long way for a student who is trying to withdraw from their environment, right? So it's really a matter of like arming a teacher with a toolbox that's going to help them engage students so that the student will engage with the teacher and their classmates. And a lot of times, the most important pieces teachers can do are pieces like eye contact, pieces like having regular routines in the classroom, not leaving things open-ended, right? A lot of teachers, and I'm sure those of you in high school or many of you remember this, right? Go find a partner. That's an awful feeling for a kid who's feeling depressed or isolated, right? So it's important for teachers to have routines in place, right? Like this is why your teacher is going to pair you up with somebody instead of letting you choose, because it's the way to make sure everybody's included. So oftentimes what happens in the classroom is very small, a lot of really small moves that can keep a student engaged, right? So maybe it's a teacher leaving a sticky note on a desk for a student so they don't feel singled out, right? Like, hey, I'm going to check in with you soon. Or some teachers use what's kind of sometimes called a 10x2 strategy, where for over the course of 10 days, the teacher makes sure to have 2-minute conversations with that student about something not related to class, right? So that they can build a connection with that student and start making that student feel more and more incorporated into the classroom. So I think it's as the person on the front line, right? The teachers see a lot, and a really observant teacher in a traditional school setting will be able to pick up on the signs that something's going on with the student and be able to try to build that connection, but also, right, refer that, like pass on what they're noticing to the teacher, to the staff at the school, like the adjustment counselor, the guidance counselor, that something's up with this kid. But the primary focus that I really want to emphasize is that a teacher should be creating an environment where the student can feel safe, right? So that they can access, right, learning, but also feel like they can connect with their peers.
Thank you so much. I really like the focus on the little things and how that can start the relationship between the teacher and the student. And I've seen it before, and I definitely know that that's a powerful tool that teachers have, and good teachers use all the time. So please keep the questions coming in into the chat. They're wonderful. We're gonna have one more question, because our panelists, thank you guys so much. You've done a great job staying in the time frame. I know it's really tough when there's so much to say, so much to talk about, to stay with the time. So we're gonna ask you all one more question, and then we'll get some feedback, and then we'll go into the Q&As from the audience. So this question is for everyone. We'll go in the same order. So Dr. Chandra first. If you could give one message to teens struggling with loneliness, what would it be?
So I would say a big part of loneliness these days is probably smartphones. And so whenever I do talks, I research, and I also have lots of books on topics. But Jean Twenge, however you pronounce her name, is a wonderful psychologist at San Diego State, and she found in 2012 this book is from 2017. She found that starting in 2012, with the advent of smartphones, once smartphone use reached about 50%, depression, anxiety, and loneliness started to spike. And I mean, this is common sense in a way. The more we are on our phones, the less we are communicating face to face with people, the less we are engaging in socially nutritious kind of interactions. So we think we are connected because we are on our phones and on our computers constantly communicating with people, but it is really, really not as nutritious as the face-to-face, as talking on the phone. Where there really is, some emotional component to it. So I would say that's my takeaway. And I'm going to take 1 minute to point out, kind of from a sociological lens, there have been some different touchstones in US kind of cultural critiques. So in 1982, Neil Postman wrote a book called The Disappearance of Childhood, talking about how kids are basically kind of overworked and are turning into kind of little adults, that there isn't leisure time. And likewise, in terms of the adult part, 1991, Juliet Shore wrote The Overworked American, talking about how adults are overworked. In 2001, Robert Putnam, who I think is at Harvard in some way, wrote Bowling Alone, sort of why American community has kind of broken down. And then Jean Twenge wrote this iGen book in 2017. So these are kind of cultural touchstones that kind of point at the decline of community and kind of the sense of overwork that people have and kind of feeling the need, feeling very pressured. But my key suggestion is comes from Vivek Murthy's Together, which Dr. Shah mentioned before we spoke, that you really want to bring him on. And he basically says, he has 4 suggestions. One is make sure that you are focusing on the people you love and talking with them every day. Another is, spending time alone, whether it's in nature or just kind of by yourself thinking or engaging in creativity, but being okay with solitude. And then, also just disconnecting from your phone. I forget the other 2 points, but those are a couple of major points that he made in his book Together, which is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's really important to stress also what you mentioned earlier that communicating on phones and screens isn't a real substitute for real life face-to-face communication. Um, and that idea is just a fallacy that it is. But Ms. Palmer, could you give your insight on one message you could give to teens struggling with loneliness?
Yeah, most definitely. It's hard to stick to just one, so I'll do my best here. But right out of the gate, I'll offer another book by Jonathan Haidt, who wrote a book called Anxious Generation. And I just want to reiterate what I said before. It is not a character flaw that we're lonely. It is not a character flaw that we are anxious. It is a reaction in the body. And so if we can do things that just help us feel more calm and happy, you don't have to be fake happy, but just to find the little teeny tiny joys in your day. Like maybe it's hot water for your shower or the taste of your toothpaste, or I don't know, maybe something that you're having for lunch. Or maybe just writing a nice note for someone, but just find those little tiny joys and practice those. And that will lead to your nervous system calming down and inviting you into reaching out to people so you aren't feeling so lonely. I would also offer, I know I said I was going to stick to one, but I guess I was optimistic. The other thing I think is just to recognize how brave it is to step beyond ourselves sometimes, to say hello to someone. When we put our phone down, I was on a flight this morning and I talked to the woman next to me the entire time. Admittedly, I don't usually do that. We had the best conversation and our phones were nowhere to be found. But even I had to just get a little bit brave and just extend myself to her. So I just offer that it truly is the little things, and the more we can do to just identify those little joys. Okay, promise, I swear this is my last one. A very simple way to calm your nervous system is a quick breathing technique where you breathe in and then you take another sip of air in and then you sigh. So it's in. That stimulates something called the vagus nerve, which sends a message to the rest of your body that everything is okay.
Wow, thank you. That's a really good tip.
Amok, can I button just one second? I would request all the panelists to email me your takeaways. Dr. Chandra, the 4 books and the 4 Vivek's, whatever you wanted to share. And same with Ellen and Dr. Bilal and Sharon, please.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll make sure we put it on our event page and, they are kind of memorialized for people who could not note, or because we had 80 registrations, but usually on a weekday evening, it's challenging for people to join. but I know people are interested. So if you could please email me your takeaways, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your response. Dr. Bilal, if you could give your insight on one message to teens struggling with loneliness.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this really echoes what we've heard already. Um, I would generalize some of this and say that I worry a bit that loneliness or some of the loneliness that we're seeing is a consequence. Basically, it's a price that we pay for the conveniences that we have as a society. And as an example, like I mean, technology is sort of the obvious one, um, but it used to be a real effort, a real chore to have to ask a stranger for directions if you didn't know how to get somewhere. Right? It's an uncomfortable thing to do, but if when that was your only way of being able to figure out how to get from point A to point B, it was kind of mandatory and it was a forced way of having a bit of social engagement, social interaction, getting over the hump of that social anxiety, connecting with somebody, and then you get a little piece that of what you needed. And of course, we live in an era now of where you can, GPS your way to anywhere you want. Um, and that's the GPS example is it's one example, but we live in an era now where we all verbally we say that we want these conveniences, and I think without realizing that there's really a consequence. And the consequence is it robs us. I fear it robs us of uh, the, these little moments that we have to socialize with folks around us. I don't know if you see like on YouTube, you'll um, sometimes you'll see like old uh, recordings of like uh, the late 80s, early 90s of people walking to a convenience store and just recording what a day in the life was like. And it just, life was just so much more social then. And I don't think it's because we were different as people. I think it's we just didn't have the tools that we have now, where you can essentially just kind of go in and live your life without really talking to other people. And so the what I would advocate is, if anything, it's leaning into the discomfort and leaning into inconvenience. I'm kind of a fan of this dumb phone movement that some of your generation is quite frankly adopting, because I think there's benefits to it beyond just sort of the obvious, and I think strategies like that are it's a small way of combating this loneliness epidemic that so we're all facing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think that's a really unique point that, it's so much easier to get lost in your world, in your own world now. Miss Sharon, if you could give your insight. I know there's already been a lot said, but please, if you've got anything to add, we'd love to hear it. One message to teens struggling with loneliness.
Yeah, I think my message would be, and this is a message I give to teachers when they're working with students, is that, we all have this kind of like invisible suitcase that we carry around that people can't see of what's going on inside or what's happened in our past. Right? You don't know from looking at somebody, right, what trauma they hold, what's happening at their home, what you think who their best friend is actually the nasty thing they said to them online, right? Like we don't see that on the surface. And so this idea of being able to build empathy with one another, like both, educators need to have that with the students in front of them. Teenagers feel like they're the only one experiencing something, right? Because feelings are so big when you're a teenager. So any ability you have to kind of just emphasize, you really don't know what somebody else is carrying with you. And then I would say on top of that, trying within yourself to kind of like tap into what you do feel confident about, right? Like what your islands of competence are. Because the more you can build up for yourself what you feel confident about, it will extend into other areas, right? So it will extend into your ability to connect with other people. The more you can internally feel good about yourself.
Thank you so much. That point of how interconnected everything is in your body and in your life is just so true. And I think that's something that gets overlooked. If you think of everything as different, it's really hard. But when you understand that they're all so connected, fixing one aspect will make it much easier to help another. So the last thing we're gonna do before we move on to the Q&A from the audience, is we're going to ask for you guys' concluding remarks, your final takeaway. So please keep this to about 2 to 3 minutes. We're gonna go in reverse order here, and if you guys would like, I can restate your original question as well, or we can just get right into it. So we're gonna start with Miss Sharon first, reverse order.
Sure. So my question was about like how can educators like help students that are feeling disconnected or lonely, right? And I would really, really firmly just emphasize like as a teacher, you need to really remember like your role is you're a teacher. You're not a kid's friend. You're not their parent. You're not their therapist, right? Like you're their teacher. And as that, you really want to approach each kid um, with this attitude like this kid's totally normal, just like every other kid in my room. Every kid in here is normal, right? Because it neutralizes the classroom environment, and um, it doesn't create isolation, right? I think sometimes for educators they really overdo trying to connect with that student who's withdrawing, and that really backfires because the teenager won't trust you and they won't engage in class that way. They'll withdraw more or they'll act out more. So I think the big takeaway I want to really give is that your role as a teacher is to create an environment where every student feels safe participating in the classroom. I tried to keep it short.
Thank you so much. No, that was perfect. Next is Dr. Bilal, if you could give your final takeaway.
Sure. Yeah, I'll keep this fairly brief, but I think the most important thing is sort of at the very beginning, which is being aware of the issues and as a society, as a culture, as a community, being willing to talk about it and articulate these problems. I mean, this panel that we're on now is an example of how I think the tides have changed. It wasn't that long ago that even discussing these sorts of issues was really quite taboo in American culture, certainly. And there's certainly other cultures and folks we take care of where but these topics are still really quite taboo, and you can just see what a difference it makes in trying to kind of break into an understanding with teens and their families in terms of what can be done to make folks feel better. And so, I mean, I really want to applaud you all because I think this is it's really evidence that the most important first step really is being taken of just making this accessible and aware to the people who really need to hear it the most.
Thank you so much. That means a lot, coming from someone as knowledgeable as you. Um, Next, Miss Ellen Palmer, if you could give your final takeaway.
Yeah, I would agree. I just think it's incredibly brave to create a movement around something that you believe in that helps so many people. So congratulations to all of you. And please, please, please keep up the momentum. It really makes a measurable difference for everybody. I guess I would come back to my question, which was something along the lines of what was the global impact of the pandemic and what's happening in the world on and how it contributes to loneliness. And I would say if you could do one thing to unplug, not just from technology, but sometimes it's from gossip or drama or things that keep you practicing thoughts and feelings that you don't want to have, and just find a way to put that down or turn it down and reach out. If we're lonely or if you're lonely, maybe you're the one to reach out to someone else. And I know that's really hard. Um, and I work with as many adults as I possibly can to encourage them to be the ones to reach out. But if it's you, just know that you are one syllable away, one one whisper, one touch away from feeling a little bit more connected to someone else. So just turn down the volume on all that other stuff.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a great message. Last, for the final takeaways, Dr. Rohit Chandra, if you could please.
Thanks. Everyone's takeaways have been wonderful, reinforcing what you've already said. So I think my question was, how do parents know, how do people know if a teen is lonely? And again, I point to the sort of the two different types of loneliness. Some teens may say, I don't have enough friends. And then, parents and those around them can brainstorm how to get them more connected, maybe joining a club, maybe, just finding ways to get them in front of other people and helping them feel more connected. That emotional loneliness where they may have people around them, but not feeling validated, not feeling heard. There, I think, parents can ask about that. And in general, I think it's important for parents to really just sort of like that book, The Runaway Bunny, where the bunny is running away and the mother says, well, I'm your mother, I will follow you. Making sure that you are following your child to wherever your child is going, whether it's online or offline, just really knowing what's happening in your child's life. The best parenting is parenting where parents are, set expectations, but also pay a lot of attention. So that balance, I think, is really important. And in terms of looking at warning signs, again, if a child is irritable, is withdrawing more so than usual, and it's tough to tell teenagers, I don't want to create false positives necessarily, be like, oh my God, my teenager sounds like they're lonely, depressed, and anxious. I heard this doctor on a panel. So that's not helpful. But so I don't want to worry anybody. But I mean, if your child is irritable and withdrawn, and like Dr. Bari said, if it's consistent, then sometimes you get feedback from others. So listen to that feedback and really get the help needed by connecting your child to a pediatrician or school mental health counselor or someone trusted to find to evaluate more. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. So we're perfectly on schedule. We're going to take about the next 15, 20, 25 minutes. We're going to go over some questions from the audience. I know I've got some of my private messages, so I'll read those first, and then you guys may have seen one in the chat. We're also going to go to that one as well. So these are going to be a little bit differently. Please feel free, anyone, to volunteer to answer. If you think it's up your alley, please speak out. And after one panelist has given their insight, if you have anything to add, feel free as well. And once we fully answer the question, we'll move on. So the first question is, how can communities and neighborhoods, schools and clubs create more inclusive spaces for young people?
Ms. Sharon, you're from a school setting, so you may want to respond.
Yes, I was trying to formulate how I want to word it. So I think it really comes down to having really good routines and expectations of students, right? So in a classroom, a lot of behavior is happening while a teacher is instructing, and a teacher with very strong classroom management is noticing the behaviors that isolate students, right? So they're noticing hey, every time Johnny speaks, I hear Susie whispering to her friend, right? Those little sometimes we call them microaggressions, right, that are happening in the classroom. And so it's very important as adults in the room, right, to act as moderators and to reinforce the expectations. Hey, only one person's talking at the time. That means nobody else is even whispering, right? Because those little pieces kids pick up on, right? They know who's being disrespectful in class. They know who's insulting who, right? Most of the time in class, kids know what's happening socially between their peers. So an adult in the room really has to be observant of that, and they have to be consistent. So I think that's one piece that's very important. I also think teachers and schools in general, it's really important that we facilitate interactions between students. I think this has come up a lot, right? This lack of connection between kids because they're so used to being behind a screen. And so, I encourage teachers as much as possible, as much as we want to integrate technology into the classroom, you're actually like doing your students the best service when you have that laptop closed, right? Or that iPad put away, whatever the technology pushes at your school, because um, the people and we're going to see it more and more, the people who are going to be the most successful are the people who can have a one-on-one conversation with each other, versus the kid who can hide behind a screen and code whatever, right? That they're actually going to have much more success in their careers. So we as leaders in schools need to kind of mimic that environment that we want them to go out and participate in when they graduate. So I would say really consistency, routines, and pushing kids off screens are your best bets to create more inclusivity at your schools.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our next question um, was, or sorry, does anyone have anything to add before we move on? Okay. So our next question is how does loneliness look different in extroverts and introverts? If at all.
And I offer, it's not a direct response to this question. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I was interrupting you. Okay, real
I
quickly.
was going to say, I'm not.
Yeah, I think an observation that I have had is that we often make assumptions about introverts and extroverts. We can sometimes assume that extroverts are not lonely, and we can sometimes assume that introverts are lonely. And that's just not the case. I think there are plenty of extroverts who are used to using their energy and getting energy from being in environments where there's other people and engaging, but they can also be doing that from a place of real deep loneliness. And so I don't know that I necessarily have a solution. It's just, I think we should treat it the same, whether I think we should stop assuming. I guess that's what I'll offer is maybe just understand that how someone is presenting isn't necessarily how they are truly feeling. So don't make an assumption that someone who's really social and bubbly is feeling connected because they might not be.
Mm.
Echo that. I mean, I don't know about research on this, but again, loneliness is functionally social hunger. So to use the same sort of themes of hunger and thirst that I point out, I mean, anyone can be socially hungry. I'm not sure how it looks, in extroverts versus introverts, but how much are you getting versus how much do you need? How much social connection are you getting versus how much do you need? And if there's a mismatch, if you're not getting enough, you're not getting enough.
Yeah, I think the only piece I would add to that is I think the fact that it took us a little while to answer that I think speaks to the idea that I certainly don't really think of somebody who they're like as an underlying person in terms of extrovert versus introvert when I'm trying to reason through whether they might be affected by loneliness. I think it's much more on an individual case by case basis, and I think those big buckets of whether you fall into an extrovert category versus introvert are too broad and probably. I mean, just my own experience in working with patients and families is that's not really language that I found particularly helpful. So I mean, the good news is it's like who you are as a person is more important than I think those bigger labels in terms of how you're affected by loneliness.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That was awesome. This next one is specifically for Dr. Rohit Chandra. You mentioned in your talk that you work closely with immigrant families and people of culturally diverse backgrounds. So this question was, do cultural expectations and cultural differences, such as academic pressure or familial obligations, do they contribute to teen loneliness, um, even when a student may seem to be successful by someone else's standards?
That's an absolutely marvelous question. Yes. So, I mean, I grew up bicultural, I would say. I mean, part of me is American, part of me is Indian in a sense. I had both sides in the way that, Kamala Harris, was both Black and both South Asian. So, I mean, I think, the way that bicultural identity development kind of merges. I mean, you're trying to fulfill both parts of your identity in a sense. You're trying to make sure that you are pleasing or you are, satisfying, the expectations of family, which, may be more collective family. So, you're part of a family, you're one of us. There may be pulls towards what the family wants or needs from you. Whether they need you to be a interpreter, whether they need you to be, the academically successful one, whether they need you to be the good girl. I mean, I'm stereotyping a little bit in terms of gender, but I mean, there are sometimes expectations on kids from their families. And, we have these polls and we feel like we need to, succeed and kind of do what is expected of us by our family and our culture, our community. And then there's the pull of individualism, to put it sort of in a very sort of binary way that, Indian culture, if you are from an Indian background, a little bit more collective, American culture, a little bit more individualistic. So then how do you individuate? How do you figure out who you are individually and, separate from your family of origin? These are complicated things. And, so kids can feel alone if they, if parents pull them away or the culture pulls them away too much from their own individual trajectory. They can say, I'm pulled away from my friends. I'm not allowed to go out. I'm not allowed to date. Everyone else is moving forward. I see them, kind of going on their trajectory, and I'm sort of stuck American, or you're otherwise not fulfilling the family's expectations. Then you can feel misunderstood and lonely in that sense too. Those are some answers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that insight. This next one from the audience we talked a little bit about, but so maybe this one can be quick. I think Miss Palmer and Dr. Barr, you guys definitely touched on this, but it's why do you think teen loneliness has become such a major issue in this generation specifically? Do you think loneliness has grown as a problem, or I've also heard that it is just more recognized now. So your thoughts on that debate, please.
I would offer that there is more pressure now and more distractions now. We've all made reference to there just being so many things in the way of connection that it's easier to isolate, whether that was the way school systems were set up during pandemic times or the way we have dual income families, busy with their priorities, or so many activities lined up for our teenagers. Like it's just a recipe for disconnection, isolation, and then loneliness. And I don't want to keep practicing that it's just the way it is, because it doesn't have to be that way. I think there's a lot more at CoreWise Collective, we call ourselves hope holders. Like, because we see it and because we know it's happening, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to help change it by minimizing some of those distractions.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to add anything?
I mean, I guess I would just echo what I said before, which is that it sounds like it was happening. Again, this sort of Robert Putnam's Bowling Alone book being sort of a cultural touchstone, identifying this problem of community, kind of the decline of community. And that book was in 2000. But then, again, the advent of the smartphone in early 2012, it seems research shows that that's when these problems spiked. And certainly COVID worsened things when people, became comfortable kind of just being online and communicating in that way. And maybe we haven't totally come out of that.
Thank you so much. And we just got one more from the audience. I think kind of a follow-up to your previous question, Dr. Chandra. And it's how can immigrant parents who may have had different, or I guess any parents in general who may have had different teenage experiences and different pressures in their youth help minimize pressure on their teenagers and understand them. So
And
yeah.
and Rohit, that's an interesting question because it's coming from Amog's dad, who is in the audience now.
Uh-oh. All right. Okay. Not trying to hang around anyone now. I'm just kidding. I mean, in general, know your child in the way that Dr. Murray was saying, know the individual. Like sometimes things are very individual. It's important to, and Alan Palmer was saying about, sort of feelings are often held in the body. Um, it's important to know your child. What is your child's stress level? And if your child is under stress, they're like, I have a test on Monday. I'm going to go out and do whatever I want. It's like, okay, you need to probably, tighten the screws on the child and be like, you need to study. If your child is like, oh my God, I'm totally stressed. I'm not able to get my work done. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. Then you want to find a way to bring that stress level down. So, I mean, we humans tend towards homeostasis emotionally and physiologically, but sometimes we need other people's help. So as a parent, you can help if your child seems stressed. I mean, the child's baseline, you know what is probably normal for them. If they seem like they're overly stressed, you want to help them calm down. You want to, sort of reassure them like, we love you, you will do fine. Don't get so, zoomed in on this moment to be like, okay, this test is all that matters. No. So, help them gain perspective, zoom out in a sense, and, remind them it's fine. You will be fine. Just do your best, be able to study properly, do your best, or, don't take so many AP courses, this year, it's going to overwhelm you, or you're putting too much on your plate in effort to get into this particular college. You don't need to do that. Again, if adults worked 80 hours a week versus 40, we would see a strain. We probably wouldn't be able to socialize properly. We might be irritable. We wouldn't be exercising. We might be eating poorly, sleeping poorly, all of that. Likewise, I mean, if teenagers are overworked, it shows them. If they're stressed, it shows. So as parents, you need to figure out how to turn down the volume if they're too stressed or turn it up if they're not stressed enough, in a sense. Thanks. Hope that's correct.
Thank you so much. Our next question, I think Dr. Shah has a question for.
Right. I've graduated from Pratibha Aunty to Dr. Shah. Okay. All right. So, thank you. And if any other audience member has any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm just coming in because we ran out of questions. So I'm very passionate about this subject, which is why we have these youth initiatives. And, as you can see, our youth leaders are amazing. So a lot of
Can I ask a question? Can I ask the audience a question? And that includes the teenagers. How do chatbots factor in? What is your generation doing with chatbots? Because from my perspective, they can be very like sycophantic. They can tell you what you want to hear and kind of keep engaging, and they can kind of parrot back things, but not really be valuable tools in terms of like giving useful advice. But wondering to what degree your generation is using chatbots and what your experience has been like with them. Thanks.
So we have, I think, 3 youth right now. But again, we have more questions coming in. Amol, I think, Mishka, are you in good network right now? You want to respond to Rohit's question?
No, she's in the car. She should wait a little bit.
Okay, yeah, her internet, she's in school right now. Mishka, you can? Do you want to respond?
Yeah. A lot of people I know of, like heard of, have been um like relying on like these chat box when they feel that they don't have people to tell about their problems. But I feel like because the chatbots aren't like necessarily human, they don't really understand like what the person might feel to a degree. But that's what I think people have been doing.
Mhm.
My
Thank you,
insight
Mishka.
on that. Oh, yeah. My insight on that would be that I think calling them sycophantly is very accurate. They are often agreeing with you in every which way. You see, there's so many experiments of people saying, I did something that is just so morally wrong, very morally, obviously incorrect. Whether that be stealing something or doing something to hurt someone's feelings emotionally. And you see the chatbots, especially ChatGPT mainly, because that's obviously the most popular one, start to come up with reasonings as to why what you did was valid. They say, oh, you were in a bad state of mind, you were hurt, you couldn't get your emotions in check. Like this could have happened to anyone. It's not on you at all. So they're definitely very sycophantly, but a lot of what I've seen is people like uh, understand this, and so a lot of people do it out of pleasure. They like or out of for humor. You see a lot of people do this, and those are the same people who are posting these online. They come up with these made up scenarios that clearly didn't happen, and they're humorous, and that's why they're posting them. But you also see, I think, a lot of the more isolated population is not really taking this as a joke or thinking of it as humorous, like what Mishka was saying, how people are using that to cope and um, like as a way to justify their feelings, regardless of what they are, whether they're good or bad. Um, but you also see that when chatbots are very good at when you do something, when you say something explicit, like a lot of the fears I've heard of chatbots are people like having relationships with AI,
Right.
are using that as a substitute for a significant other. Unless there's a chatbot specifically designed for that, which there obviously is. The main ones, they have a lot better censorship now where they won't do that. They'll be like, oh, I'm just a chatbot. I'm not a human. I can't replace human connection. But it's just so easy to get around that I think that's what makes them still very dangerous. And what I've seen in teens um, in my school and others.
Love with
That
chatbots or otherwise sort of like really have romantic relations, be like, this is my partner or something, like into Replica or other chatbots, or not quite like that.
The way that like the relationship aspect with works is that there are like um literal models that are designed to be like, your AI girlfriend or AI boyfriend or whatever, and you get like a visual representation, and they like act however you customize them to be however you want, and like those are like um those are like what you see. And that's why it's so easy because the chatbot is going to do whatever you want it to, whether that is like affirm everything you say, and it gives you that like if you don't have other sources of people trying to build you up or like supporting you, that's the crutch that you rely on.
Thank you.
My God, that was such a smart question, Rohit. I mean, flipping the coin and putting the spotlight on the youth.
Well,
So,
and I
Amol,
always feel
please.
like we have adults talking about youth to youth appearance. And I'm like, they know about themselves. So I want to make sure that we, hear their
It's
voices, not that
very
they're telling
smart.
them things. Thanks.
So that's an idea for panel number 2 this year itself, Amok, really, honestly. And I know there's one more question in the chat, but just to complete just a couple things I wanted to highlight before we go into the thank you notes and all, is that I think we all have appreciated how complex this whole topic is. And there can be so many ways to look at it. There could be so many components. There could be so many aspects of it to unpack, like just the constructs of who is an extrovert and what does it mean, and who is an introvert and what stereotype we have around them. So I think there's a lot to unpack. And one of the things that I just want to leave for reflection is we haven't talked about the loneliness of adults playing a role in the loneliness of the youth. Because we have talked about the adult playing the role model role, etc. But the loneliness is such an epidemic that the adults are also suffering from it. So, how does that play into it? And can we have more conversations at the school level, at every level, actually. I mean, there's not enough of these conversations that we can have. So I think it's just food for thought because there's so much to talk about this. And it's a personal passion and peeve of mine because I really, my heart goes out to the youth, uh, how much they struggle because the adults also pass on their expectations to the children. That's another added thing, they want custom made children who are good at everything, sports and singing and academics, of course, and all of that. So it just puts a lot of pressure and, self esteem, confidence, everything does get impacted. So it's multi layered. So I think if we can become spokes persons of this, highlighting this issue and facilitating more conversations around it and uh, seeing each child as an individual child rather than having a SOP around it, that will be very helpful because each child is unique and they're a combination of so many things. So just looking at each child individually, I think can be also very helpful. I mean, that's also in my practice. I'm an Ayurvedic doctor or Ayurvedic practitioner here. I don't use the word doctor in this country, but there's a lot of counseling that I also have to, offer in my practice as well. So I also see a lot of spectrum of these issues. So I just want to leave it for reflection because obviously we are almost completing 90 minutes, believe it or not. It's so intense. But we have one question from Anjana. And, Anjana's question also reflects what I'm trying to say, that adults are also struggling with how to actually have that bridge to their youth in the house and maybe the adults also need a lot of help and guidance. They want to, but they don't have the means or understanding how to approach the young tender teen who is probably reactive due to a lot of other things that are going on. So there comes a gap between the parent and the youth as well. That's another dynamics to the situation. But you can take Anjana's question, Amok.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, she asked, what advice do you have for teens whose parents are trying to connect with their children but struggle with the gap of knowing their world trends, um, etc., social life?
Um, I can answer. That's right. I mean, I would say be curious that, parents should just ask, what is your life like? What does your world consist of? And also read. I mean, so when I was preparing for this, I read a lot about what teens' worlds are like. And I was like, oh my God, I don't think I have any. I mean, I talk to teens all the time, but I didn't know anything about chatbots, and I was reading a lot yesterday. And I was like, oh my God, this is not a world that I'm aware of. And full disclosure, I'm divorced, don't have kids, but so I don't have teens of my own to ask questions to. But in general, I just read and was curious. So I mean, the more you're entering their worlds, like learning about the worlds of teens, kind of theoretically, you can ask them questions, just like I asked Amog about chatbots. I learned and then asked. So I think if you're curious, that goes a long way because it shows you care. And you're not expected to be a teen. Like they don't want you to be like, you don't want to say things like, "Oh, that's really cringe" or something like that. They're like, "Oh, don't say." But you're not supposed to adopt their language. You're not necessarily supposed to dress like them. You're not supposed to love their music. You're not supposed to be them. But being curious about their world. I mean, they know your world. I mean, kids are attuned to parents. They know their parents. They know their, the elders, but we don't know them often. So that, asking is helpful. If they won't talk, then learn and then ask questions. They're like, how did you know about that? But then we'll start talking. So that's what I'd say.
I think that's a great response. Just asking your kids, what do they want? What are they feeling directly? I think that's a great response. Yeah. Amok, sorry, you had disappeared for a bit. So that's why I was concluding what Rohit said. Go ahead.
So I think we're gonna try and quickly. I have one more question for both Dr. Bari and Miss Palmer. So if we can get to both, we can. If not, that's okay. But Dr. Bari, this one is for you. Um, I know that you're very like passionate about increasing access to mental health and making it more accessible. So what do you think are the biggest barriers preventing teens from getting support that they need?
I'll tell you what we do and how I hope what our clinic is doing is one of the things that's helping, which is um, it's like 50% or over 50% of psychiatrists in private practice don't accept insurance of any kind. Um, and so a big part of what we've done, and that, I mean, and to me, that is like the biggest barrier, which is either you find somebody, if you find somebody who accepts your insurance, then you pay sort of typical insurance rates. If not, then it's quite expensive, and that's a huge barrier because that really limits who can access resources, and especially people who like it's their first time dealing with something. They don't know, what's going on, and it'd certainly be helpful to get a professional opinion. Um, and so, a big part of what we're doing is actually partnering with insurance companies that allow us to kind of build a sustainable practice that lets us spend a lot more time with patients' families, see kids, see adults. And my hope is that we begin to see more of that. Like the practice for us is new, but there's multiple ways this happens. One is at the level of individual practices like ours, and trying to educate our peers that these starting practices like this is possible, and you can really help the community. But then there's bigger picture ways of doing this, which is at sort of state and federal legislative levels, advocating at that level. There's professional societies that are important. But in my opinion, I think one of the biggest barriers is the financial one, and so that's one of the ones that we're trying to break down in our clinic.
Wow, thank you so much. Yeah, I didn't even know that that was the case that so many that insurance wasn't that useful for so many people. So I think the last question we have for the day, hopefully really quickly, Miss Palmer, when you were talking, I noticed you talked about how interconnected everything is and how like your body, your physical health really can affect your feelings of loneliness. So it kind of made me think of fooditude a little bit. So I wanted to ask you how you think factors like nutrition, stress, and physical health can affect your feelings of loneliness in a teen.
Exponentially. Quick antidote, I will keep this short. We built a nonprofit called Healing Meals Community Project. And our objective was to make meals for families that were going through a health crisis. And our chefs were teenagers starting at age 14 that came into our kitchen. And what many young adults realized, and this was very subtle on our part, we just didn't want to yammer on to them about the importance of food. We let them touch the food and we let them offer this food to folks that were feeling sick. And what they learned by doing was how to uplevel their health by improving the intake of, I call it fuel, right? So a car, an engine needs a certain type of fuel in order to function well. Our body's fuel is food and water and connection. And so they are always interconnected. And when we are hydrating, we're taking in more healthy, clean water. Our cells have what they need. So we tend to have more energy. We're more open to connection when our bodies are taking in the fuel that it needs, fruits, vegetables, fish, meat, depending on your preference, beans, legumes. Our body knows what that is. It recognizes it and it takes it in and it says, thank you so much for giving me what I need. I now have all those same things. I now have the energy. I now have the capacity to think. I now have the energy to do all those other jobs my body needs to do and reach out and be brave and be social. And so I look at what you're doing with Fooditude, and I am so impressed and so happy that this is becoming a part of conversation, because for so long we looked at the body and the mind as all of these separate things when really we're all of it all the time. We're always a body, we're always a mind, we're always a spirit. And when we treat them separately, we feel separate. So we integrate it all, and we don't have to do it perfectly. We just have to give the body what it needs, what it was designed to use for fuel: food, water, connection, movement.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's like one of the biggest things I've learned that I didn't know before was just how much everything affects one another and um how important it is to understand that they're all connected. So I think for our closing remarks before we send everyone off, Pratibha, do you wants to say something, and then we'll have our thank yous.
Um, I'm going to invite Mishka for the thank you note in a minute. I just want to say a few things that moving forward, if any of our esteemed panelists have any avenues for our youth leaders, you can see how passionately involved they are. And actually, I would encourage even our panelists to check out their Instagram pages, which are completely managed by the youth, and how they're putting up important and impactful messaging posts. They meet every Sunday. So they're doing a lot of work. If there are any bigger avenues that you may have in mind, this is a national nonprofit, and we do have youth from out of state as well. So I would appreciate that if you can reach out. And I would also like to give a call out for any adults here who have youth or who know of youth. I have shared the QR code a few times. It's free to join. And this is a really motivated group of youth. And I'm really proud to say that at least 3, if not more, have written about Holistic Health Alliance and Youth Brigade experience in their college essays as one of the most important things. And I'll also mention that Amog's older brother, Agam, was our first youth brigade president, and Amog was a baby when I used to work with him. And today he's the president. So it's a great legacy. So, yeah, with that, I think I would like to now invite our vice president of Teen Mental Health Initiative, Mishka Bhatti, to thank everybody. Thank you.
To close, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed panelists, Dr. Rohit Chandra, Dr. Bilal Bari, Ms. Ellen Palmer, and Ms. Sharon Goyette, for sharing their valuable time, expertise, and insights on the critically important topic of teen mental health. Your voices, perspectives, and dedication to supporting youth well-being made this discussion truly meaningful and impactful. We would also like to sincerely thank our sponsors for their generous support: Apna Bazaar Farmers Market, our gold sponsor, Thiru Kubusami South Indian Restaurant, our silver sponsor, Gitanjali Pathak, a Metro West Realtor, and our bronze sponsor, Zest Esthetician. A special thank you as well to our supporting partners, Ascend Jiva Media, Codex, Kumon Nashua, Rhode Island Holistic Healing Association, United India Association of New England, White Feather Creations, and Yogami for helping us bring this important initiative to the community. Most importantly, we thank every attendee for being part of this conversation. Mental health awareness begins with openness, dialogue, compassion, and community, and your presence today helped further that mission. The Holistic Health Alliance Teen Mental Health Initiative is committed to creating safe, empowering, and educational spaces for youth and families. We encourage teens and young adults across the country to explore this growing platform, participate in future programs and discussions, and become part of a supportive movement focused on resilience, connection, and mental wellness. Check us out at www.holistichealthalliance.org and join today. Together, we can continue breaking stigma, building awareness, and create healthier futures for ourselves and our peers.
Thank you. Amog and Mishka, stay back, and thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet everyone. Thanks to the other panelists. It was a joy
Thanks,
to be on
Rohit.
with you. So
Thank you. Thank you. Great
yeah, and that's a
conversation.
Dropbox folder with some different resources. So.
Thank you,
Sounds good.
please.
All right.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, I have to go chair a board meeting. I'm at the headquarters.
Yes.
So thanks
I
so
know.
much. Thanks, Beth.
Thanks
Thank
for
you, everyone.
staying till the
It was a
end.
joy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye. Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Uh,
guys.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. All right, Mishka and Amok, just stay back just a couple of minutes. Dan and Mark and Susan, if you want, you can leave the meeting.